Republican Representative in Arizona Andy Biggs announces he is running for the governorship in 2026, a move that is surely going to set up a very contentious Republican primary for the 2026 Arizona governor's race. Hello and welcome to today's video. Today, as I mentioned, I'm going over the news that Republican Freedom Caucus member Andy Biggs, who is considered a hardline Republican, has announced that he is entering the race for governor. After filing a statement of interest earlier this week, he formally announced at a crowded Arizona Republican Party event. Biggs went on to even invoke one of President Trump's signature slogans, saying, "I'm jumping in formally. It is now time to make Arizona great again." Biggs submitted a statement of interest last Tuesday of the week, saying he had a firm understanding of what the state of Arizona needs to thrive, but added that he was still weighing whether to enter the race. Biggs' interest into the race likely pits him against Republican Karen Taylor Robson in the 2026 primary. Robson has not yet officially announced her candidacy, but did express interest in running for the race, and has the likely endorsement of President Trump, who said back in December, "Are you running for governor? Because if you do, you're going to have my support, okay." Robson previously lost against Republican Kari Lake in the Republican primary for Arizona governor in 2022, by a little over 40,000 votes. Lake went on to lose the general election to now Governor Katie Hobbs in a very close race. Biggs was just reelected in November to Arizona's 5th district by a wide margin, winning by over 20%. Biggs' announcement was not the only news in the Arizona Republican politics on Saturday as well, as Gina Swoboda was reelected as chairman of the Arizona Republican Party. Trump praised her reelection in a Truth Social post on Saturday evening, saying, "Congratulations to Chairwoman Gina Swoboda, who I strongly endorsed for being reelected to another term leading the great Arizona GOP. She was a key part of our historic victory in 2024. Gina is MAGA all the way, and I know she'll do a fantastic job and win many more races for Arizona Republicans in 2026 and beyond," the president said. So this is a very interesting situation, both on the Republican primary side of things and in the general election side of things. Because you may know the 2024 presidential election, of course, it just happened almost 2 months ago, coming up on 3 months ago now. The state of Arizona, which has been long considered a swing state really since 2016, but President Biden winning it in 2020 certainly reaffirmed as a swing state, voted for Donald Trump by 5%, 52% to 47%, which, checking my history, I believe that's the biggest win for a Republican in the state of Arizona, I believe since Mitt Romney back in 2012. So, again, I'll just take a look now just to be sure, because I don't want to be wrong here. Biden won it in 2020. Trump won it in 2016 by 3.5, and then Romney won it by 9.1 in 2012. So Trump outperformed his 2016 and 2020 numbers in the state of Arizona. So this is very significant, and Trump obviously has a lot of influence in the state of Arizona, particularly in the Republican Party. As for the governor's race, if you are unfamiliar with the governor, which I mentioned earlier, she is Democratic governor of the state of Arizona, Katie Hobbs. She's the incumbent governor who I just mentioned, won back in 2022 in a very close race, narrowly defeating Kari Lake. And I'm just going to show you right now how close that election was. So this was a 2022 governor election where Katie Hobbs won with 50.33% to Kari Lake, the Republicans, 49.67% of the vote. Looking at the raw numbers here, this is a win of about 17,000 votes between Hobbs and Lake. So a very, very close race that took several days for all the votes to be counted. And if you're familiar with the Arizona politics and Arizona elections, the most important county, typically of note, is Maricopa County. In Maricopa County, which has a majority of the people of Arizona living in the state, looking here, Katie Hobbs nearly got 800,000 votes in Maricopa County out of the almost 1.3 million cast statewide for her. So a majority of her votes came from Maricopa, as did for Kari Lake, who got 750,000 votes or so, and Kari Lake got also nearly 1.3 million votes. So Maricopa County is very, very important, where most of the people are, and Katie Hobbs won here very narrowly by 2%, 51% to 49%. The reason I'm telling you this and how important this is Donald Trump just won the state of Arizona by 5 points, and you'll notice Maricopa County went red for him in 2024, Trump winning here 51% to 48% over Kamala Harris. So Trump doing about the flip of what Katie Hobbs did, where she won Maricopa 51-49, Trump won it in 24, 51-48. So that's very, very important. So when it comes to talking about the actual election in Arizona and how close it is, all eyes are really on Maricopa County. As for the 2026 governor's race itself, we've already sort of set the terrain with Andy Biggs likely facing off against Karen Taylor Robson. There are a bunch of other potential candidates as well. Right now, Andy Biggs is the first candidate who has explicitly declared he is running for this race. Though we can probably expect Karen Taylor Robson will announce she is running at some time, unless Trump does flip his endorsement and endorse Andy Biggs, although there's been no indication so far he is going to do that. It's also worth noting Andy Biggs represents Arizona's 5th congressional district, which I can show you a house map right now where that 5th district is if you are curious. The 5th district of Arizona, it's a little hard to see, but you're going to find it right here, sort of right outside of Maricopa County, maybe just getting a little bit of it. It's right here in District 5. This is where Andy Biggs represents, and he won here by about 20 points. Sort of kind of like sandwiched in between Arizona District 2 and Arizona District 4. So that's where Biggs represents. As on the Republican side of things, there is also some other potential candidates. Jason Beck is one such candidate. Tom Hayton, a gym chain founder. Obviously, Karen Taylor Robson. And Kimberly Yee, the Arizona State Treasurer, who I believe was the only Republican to win statewide in 2022 in Arizona. So she's certainly been a very popular name as people who could potentially run in Arizona. There are also some people who declined to run that were looking at it potentially, or maybe being asked to do it. Juan Cisco Mani, who's a representative from Arizona 6th District, his name was brought up. He's running for re-election. Jake Hoffman's a state senator. He has endorsed Andy Biggs. And Carrie Lake, of course, the candidate in 2022 and 2024 for Senate, has announced she is not running for this race. So Biggs has just announced and has already picked up 2 endorsements, though if Karen Taylor Robson runs and her endorsement stands, she has the endorsement of the President of the United States. Certainly very, very important. Obviously, we're a long ways away before this race really picks up steam, but there has been one poll done just in the last few days, another one back about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now, that has Andy Biggs leading in both polls. And I'm not too familiar with Nico Pack. I have seen Data Orbital's name before, but I wouldn't say neither one of these polls are like the end-all be-all. So I'm not saying I'm basically saying take these numbers with a grain of salt. But it is worth noting that Biggs so far has led in both of these polls, despite the fact Karen Taylor Robson has been endorsed by President Trump, which at least suggests to me that very early on, Andy Biggs has a higher name recognition among Republican primary voters in the state of Arizona. And the way that primaries used to go for the last few years, and I would expect still go, is usually the voters who vote in the Republican and Democratic primaries are usually the more hardcore, dedicated members of those parties who will vote for those parties no matter what. And that typically means they're more on the fringes of the parties in terms of wanting a very specific political ideology candidate. So typically that meant the more far-right candidates would show up in the Republican Party, the more far-left candidates would show up in the Democratic Party, and the moderates typically wouldn't vote too much in the primaries and would show up for the general elections. This is obviously a very kind of a broad statement, so that doesn't always perfectly apply. Maybe it's not even true anymore after 2024. Maybe 26 will have higher voter turnout for primaries as well. But typically, the more like hardcore voters show up in the political primaries. And that actually could benefit Andy Biggs, who I honestly have not been too familiar with many of his statements or stances, but being a House Freedom Caucus member and some videos and tweets I've read online have suggested he is the more far right of the two candidates between Biggs and Karen Taylor Robson, which does invoke some electability questions similar to what Carrie Lake faced just this past November in the Senate race against Democrat Ruben Gallego, may put some Republicans a little worried if he'd be able to win a general election where Karen Taylor Robson, even though she has the support of Donald Trump, likely would not face as much troubles as Lake or Andy Biggs would. But that being said, of course, we're still far out. Those are all hypotheticals. And if Arizona is not a state friendly to Donald Trump, well, why did Donald Trump just win the state by 5 points? So either there was some sort of exception made for Donald Trump that Carrie Lake did not get, or maybe that argument was changed due to the electorate of the 2024 election, but maybe it comes back in 2026. These are all potential questions that we have to keep an eye out for for 2026 as things moves on. But the very early polling that's been done so far does suggest Andy Biggs has at very least a lead over Karen Taylor Robson to begin. So this is a very, very fascinating situation that I'm certainly going to monitor going forward, because I think this does set up a very interesting primary where if Andy Biggs does continue to lead in the polls and Karen Taylor Robson runs and Trump sticks with his endorsement of her, well then we're going to find out, does Trump have enough pull to get her over the finish line in 2026 and what will be the last midterms before Trump's the 2028 election, and Trump will no longer be president after 2028. So it's a fascinating situation and something I want to do an update on, and one I'm going to be probably doing more updates in the future as this situation develops. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button and make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really, really, really like the video. And remember to stay tuned, because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.